Okay, so we're back to Nicopolis. I guess the heavy cavalry here just routed, loses his charge status. So that must have been, I'm trying to remember, was that must have been, yeah, somebody's fire here. Alright, so leave that section alone. Come over here. These guys, these mounted bowmen are trying to get around and rain arrows down on the French knight unit here. So we have 3 firing. Mounted at 2. Ooh, actually they miscalculated that. 10. Okay. Now they can hit. Okay, so these are mounted bows at 2 hexes away. Just another review here. So here's mounted bow. Range, this is the range table. Go out 2 hexes is -1. XXX means it cannot fire at 3, 4, and 5 and 6 hexes. So maximum range is 2 hexes. Modifier is -1. Then you go over to the fire table. You find mounted bow. You see that normally you need at least an 8 to get a morale check, and you get 1 step loss on a 10. But you're subtracting 1 for range, which brings you down, which means that on only a 9 or on a yeah, 9 or 10, you have a morale check. And then you have to come down here. The fire table modifier is -1 if target is Crusader Heavy Cavalry. So really now we're at a 10. Only a 10 will yield a morale check on the Heavy Cavalry. So 3 units are firing. They're all trying to get a 10. Whoa! And you got a 10. So just a morale check on the Crusader Cavalry here. This is the one that failed to enter charge mode. So he goes with his standard non-charging morale, which is 7. Oh, he rolled a 10. He rolled a 10, which means that he failed his morale. Wow. Some amusing luck there. And again, retreat 1, 2, oh. Because he's facing off against mounted bowmen, he probably should consider routing the full 3 hexes. You go 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. Huh. Alright. Alright, so that is the Ottoman offensive fire step of the combat phase. Fire combat phase. The offensive fire step of the fire combat phase. Wait. Actually, that can get confusing, but anyways, you know what I mean. Melee. Don't have any melee because these are all skirmish units here, and they cannot initiate melee. So then we go to, okay, first player rally phase. The Ottomans don't have anybody to rally. Then, starting with game turn 5, the second player, Crusader player, would roll for victory. We're not there yet. We go to the second player or Crusader movement phase. Check for everybody to be in command. Everyone is in command. Everyone is in command. Movement. Move our units back behind the front lines here first. Alright, so... Oh! They may never enter hexes closer to an enemy unit that is 5 hexes away. The loose quality to the rules means that terms are not used consistently. So it's a combat unit, a unit, skirmish unit, so on and so forth. So under the reserve command chip, they cannot move not enter a hex that's closer to an enemy unit that is 5 hexes away. So I guess that this, so I'm looking at the Wallachians here. They have their reserve order under Mercia, commander, leader, Mercia. So the closest enemy unit is the mounted bowman here. So these guys are already within 5. Actually, they're all within 5 hexes. So we go to reserve combat units that begin a turn closer than 5 hexes to an enemy unit. Must, if they move, do so in such a way that at the end of the movement phase they are 5 or more hexes away from the closest enemy combat unit. Now it says enemy combat unit. Okay. And combat units, just to check again for the 100th time, combat units, I guess, includes, well, basically a combat unit is anything but a leader unit. You have combat units, you have leader units. Unit types. Yeah, it's still confusing, but it's still confusing. But I guess, okay. Anything that's not a leader, I guess, is a combat unit. But actually, they could move at least one more time over here. To determine 5 hex range, count the enemy occupied hex, but not the hex to be entered. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess that is the first hex. All right, so 1. We'll move well clear. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1, 2, 3. Oops. He has to do facing. He's not a skirmish unit. So 0 for the initial. I should say initial, not first. 0 for the initial facing change. 1, 2, 3. 0. Wow. Mercia's has some cavalry here, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. 0, 1, 2. 3. Guess the shape of these counters are not good for tweezer work. Plus my poor manual dexterity today. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so they're all well outside of the range that they're supposed to stay out of. And go over and basically do similarly with the Transylvanians over here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I know what. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Roughly there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. All right. So I have my range. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Slow-moving infantry taking up the rear. Now I've advanced these two wing formations under their reserve orders. Now it's going to become especially important that I'm able to switch their orders. And actually they're both below average. Burgrave, commander of the Transylvanians, has a very low command rating of 3, and even Mercia has a below average command rating of 4. But we'll see how it plays out. Now back to the center and the French cavalry in the center. They're under an attack command, so they have to they have mandatory movement that they have to do. So interesting. Alright, so he can move, he can sweep by the Ottoman mounted bow skirmish unit because the skirmish unit does not exert a ZOC. So 1, 2. These charging French cavalry are again going to try to run right over the Assab dismounted bow skirmish units there. I guess the rest stay put since almost half of the formation is already routed. Didn't really expect that to happen so soon. Alright, so that is the Crusader movement, and that is the end of the Crusader movement phase. Then we move to the Crusader combat phase. We start with the fire combat. What should I call it? Subphase? Subphase works, right? Subphase, yeah. Step. Yeah, fire combat. Alright, so defensive fire. So again, all of the Ottomans get to unleash their... okay, and here's where the skirmish units retreating before combat, they could get away, but of course they give up their ability to fire. But it doesn't matter in this case because retreat before combat is only for opposing infantry. Yeah, so enemy of it. So these are all obviously French knights. They're mounted. They're not infantry, so it doesn't apply here. But now I see if these Crusader units were infantry, then so actually the skirmish units, and this was the little nuance I was missing, they can just keep retreating. Of course, they give up any combat roll while they're doing that, but they can survive in that way as necessary. Okay. But this step, retreat before combat, is not an option, so we go to the... so now we start the fire combat. Yeah, that really should be a separate step of the... sequence of play, right? Because we have the combat phase, fire combat, defensive, offensive, fire. Then you go into the melee, and they don't even include it in this one, but there's a step in the melee procedure for retreat before melee, basically. But there's that initial step, which is not mentioned at all in the sequence of play, where skirmish units can retreat in front of opposing infantry. Okay, enough of that. I missed it before. Okay. So back to defensive fire. So let's take a look. I'll try to just do these a few times, then start just tearing through them. But we have dismounted bows, so we have the 2 bow units here. Bow at range 1 is a +1 on the range table. That's good because that will counteract or cancel the -1 for target being Crusader heavy cavalry. So we just have an even on the bow column. So I want to get a 7 or better to have an effect, 9 or better for a step loss. Oh, we get an 8. So we have a morale check. So I can mark, I can remind myself with a, what is that? Okay. So he has a morale check to do. And the next, the other one has a morale check as oh wait, I moved, it's okay, I moved to the next hex though, so I should have resolved this combat back in this hex. So the charging Crusader cavalry has a normal morale check, and he passes with a 3, so he's fine. So they successfully executed a ranged attack, but the French result was unaffected. Yep. He rolls a 1, so he easily passes his as well. Okay, so now here, to show how this works, right? That French cavalry unit had a melee check as a result. The mounted bow here is gonna, wait a minute, can he even get anything? He can, well, he can't see the mounted bow shooting at the Crusader heavy cavalry, which has a -1 fire table modifier, cannot get anything better than a morale check. So there is no point in shooting at this same target because here he had a morale check this step of the phase. So he will fire at Jean-Pierre's stack there instead, hoping for some type of result. Again, he has to subtract. Yeah, he rolls a 2, -1 for the Crusader heavy cavalry is a 1. Misses. Now the dismounted bow here, a Saab unit, also fires at Jean-Pierre there. So he has +1 for range, -1 for Crusader heavy cavalry. And he rolls a 1, he misses completely. Now we have a, no we don't. That is all the defensive fire from the Ottoman units. Now we go to the offensive fire. The Crusaders, they still have no, they have these bowmen over here, and they have these bowmen over here, but no targets in range. Oh, we also have the mounted archers here, but again, no targets in range for fire. Now we go to the Crusader melee phase. Okay, so we definitely want to do a bunch of melees. First melee. Let's see. Second melee. The third melee. Which one's more I think the dismounted bows are slightly more threatening. Oh wait, he only has the mounted bow in his front hexes anyways. There we go, we have three melees right here. I'll go in order here. First one here. Okay, so the Crusader heavy cavalry have to roll for commitment. He passes with a 6. He's fine. Now we go to step 2, or that was step 2. Step 3. So cavalry units retreating and skirmish units being attacked by cavalry may retreat on die roll of 8, 9, or 10. I don't see why he wouldn't. So 8, 9, or 10. He rolls a 2. He does not successfully retreat. So that was step 3. Now we go to step 4. Defender must check morale to stand. He rolls a 3, so he easily stands. Now we go to execution. So So this is simultaneous. Both players are using the melee table. I'll do the attacker first. The French heavy cavalry is zoom in on this. Yep, you can see there. Heavy cavalry has a combat factor of 12. So I know I'm starting on the 11 to 15 column, or no, I'm rolling on the 11 to 15 column. So then I go through all of my modifiers. This is cavalry with an attack command, so it's +1. And I think that's the only one that applies. That's the only one that applies. So it's +1 die roll modifier for charging, well, for attacking cavalry with an attack command. Yeah. So +1 die roll modifier. He rolls a 6, +1 is 7. 7 on that column is only a morale check. So I put that as my reminder next to the Assab unit. Now the Assab fights back. He has only a combat value of 2. There's the 2 right there. So he's on the first column, 1 to 3. We don't have to worry about all these modifiers that reference commands because skirmishers don't follow commands. So actually it's nothing, just even. So he rolls, oh, he rolls a 10. He's a morale check, so the best he could possibly get, and that is a morale check against the heavy cavalry. Now, so now we both have to roll for morale. Somewhere it says that the defender does this first. I'm trying to find it in these rules. Simultaneous. Defender applies results first, then the attacker. So because the defender applies his result first, even though it's simultaneous, as convention, I like to go ahead and knock out the defenders. So he passed his morale check easily with a roll of 2. And now the Crusader cavalry, he passes his fine with a 4. So so that's that. The Crusader cavalry is not going to get his bonus or additional movement and combat. Now move to the second melee here. Attackers commitment. He's good with a 6. The skirmish unit is going to try to retreat before combat, and he succeeds. He gets an 8. 8, 9, or 10 needed to retreat before combat. No, before melee. They don't really say what he does here in the melee. Skirmish units. Okay. Under the skirmishers and commands section, it says they may retreat up to 3 hexes from enemy cavalry units under control before the combat phase begins, but only if the only player rolls an 8, 9, or 10 for the skirmish unit. That is... it's very misleading since that makes it sound Since it's not before the combat phase, it's before, right, am I missing this? Really before the melee half of the combat phase. All right. So it's up to 3. Let's experiment with something. So he'll just retreat 1. So he retreats before melee. Now I'm sure that the attacker must then advance at least 1 unit into the vacated hex. So the heavy cavalry must advance. So strictly speaking, it makes it sound like the melee is over. Because under step 7, charging Crusader heavy cavalry units that were attacking and advanced, as per step 6, 6 is only as a result of the actual simultaneous melee rolls on the melee table. Okay. Strictly speaking, I guess he doesn't get that. I'm not so sure about that at all, but yeah, well. So this charging heavy cavalry has to pass morale for commitment. He rolls a 6, -1 for being stacked with leader is 5, which is well under his charging melee of 8. So we'll do this again. The Assad skirmish unit tries to retreat before melee. He gets an 8, succeeds. Let's just go like this. Oh, it can't go that way. So boom, 1. Huh. I wonder if changing facing. Well, I guess it's in advance, right? So under the advance rules, advance and retreat. If a defender vacates a hex as a result of pre-melee morale check. Pre-melee morale check. Oh, it's not really this case. Or, okay, or a pre-combat skirmisher or cavalry unit. Withdraw, the attacker must advance at least 1 combat unit into the vacated hex. But can you change facing? I guess. At the end of melee combat, facing changes have no cost. I guess I don't want to change facing in this case anyways, but it makes me wonder. Alright, so that's all of the Crusader melees. We do have some, so we move to the Crusader rally phase. The first step is to rally units that are eligible. So we go first here. The Crusader cavalry is routed and he has 1 step loss, so his morale is 7, -1 for the 1 step loss is 6. He can rally because he's within the command span of his leader or the overall leader. So he rolls to rally. He adds 1 because so he rolls a 4. Add 1 because he's routed is a roll of 5, which is 1 below his modified morale of 6. So he rallies. And then over here, 1, 2, 3, 4. This guy, as of now, essentially has 1 chance to rally because he is 4 away from his formation leader. Okay, he fails, right? So he rolls a 7. His printed morale is 7, which would normally pass because you want equal to or less. But the fact that he's routed means you have to add 1 to the die roll, which is 8, which means that he just barely failed. Now I'm going to move him back, straight back 3, which puts him within the command span now of his overall leader, Sigismund here. Sigismund has a command span of 4, 1, 2, 3, so he'll get to rally again next time around because now he's within the command span of his army leader, his overall leader, sorry, not army leader, overall leader. And that is the Crusader rally phase, or the rally step of the rally phase, and then starting on game turn 5, if eligible, the Ottomans will roll for victory. And that is the end of game turn 2. We'll go right into game turn 3, which is the 10:30 in the morning turn. Now we need to seriously look at changing some orders here. We'll go try going in order. We'll try advancing Mercia and his Wallachians 1 more turn under reserve orders, but we'll try to change Burgrave and his Transylvanians, try to change into they can go to an advance or an attack. Let's try, he has such a low command rating. So what do you do? Do you hastily try to move into attack? Maybe a little early because he has such a low command rating. Let's try that. Not saying this is the best approach, but let's try experiment with reserve to advance, and we'll leave everybody else as is. So Burgrave is here. Right there is well outside of the command span of his overall leader, so there is no modifier there. So it is just a simple test against his command rating. His command rating again is very low, 3. Right. So this is Burgrave. He is the leader of the Transylvanian infantry and cavalry. He has a command rating of 3, command span of 5, and a combat modifier of +1. Melee modifier +1. Alright, so we hope that we get 3 or less so we can change his order. Rolls a 2. So he successfully changes his order from reserve to advance, which is good. That means he can continue on, and now we can consider transitioning him to the attack at some point. So there were no changes for the Ottomans. Bayezid will continue to stand, and the Serbians will stay in reserve for another turn. Now we go to the Ottomans movement phase. Everybody is still in command. A quick scan reveals that. Don't need to worry about that. Everybody's still in command. Now we have our movement. So what are we going to do? Keep the pressure up here with. I'm going to keep pressure up here with our skirmishers, but the skirmishers can't enter combat combat unit Zocs anyways. So I wonder if I forgot to rally him. I may have. Oh well. I think they're just going to continue on around and try to swarm the French. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again, we have the limitation of not being able to enter enemy socks. 1, 2. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Remember, these skirmisher units have no facing. This is for visual effect only. Let's do some routed movement. So the routed unit here, he can move. He is not stuck in place, but he has a very specific movement allowance. Routed combat units follow no commands. Instead, they may be moved up to half their movement allowance away from the closest enemy combat units during the movement phase. So the closest is definitely Jean-Pierre here, but you can't get any closer to these ones over here anyways. So can't get any closer to these ones. So I think he can just go. So half of his movement allowance is 4. I think he can just go straight back like 1, 2, 3, 4, I think. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that for now. Again, okay, so he moved over there, not necessarily a good idea, but we'll see how all the rules and mechanics work together. They might just get run over by the Wallachians there. Well, that's interesting. So with the reserve order, they cannot move. They have, the stipulation about not moving, closer than 5 hexes to enemy combat units. But does that apply to a routed unit? Does that apply to a routed unit? Would that apply or not? Is an enemy combat unit an enemy combat unit if it's routed? Well, I guess you could say that they can advance without respect to it, but if it were to suddenly rally, then you would have to follow the rules for that under the reserve command chit. Routed units don't have Zocs. Routed units have no Zocs. I don't know. No, I guess while they're routed, they must not play, because otherwise you could in effect put up a kind of screen against units just because they're under reserve orders. That doesn't make sense. I think maybe it makes more sense that these units under reserve orders do not have to stay, out of that 5 hex range. But of course, they would have to react if it rallies, and yeah, all right. movement. Bayezid will stay. Go ahead and move our Serbians a bit. 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1. Right. So that's Ottoman movement. Now we go to Ottoman combat phase. There are no Crusader retreats before combat. So we go straight to the fire combat. Starting with defensive fire, we have none. So we go to offensive fire. So we're back to our swarming dismounted and mounted bowmen. Oh. Okay. Huh. So skirmish units can retreat before combat. Well, before the combat phase begins. Is it implied that that's any combat phase, or is that implied their combat phase? Think about that later. Let's get some fires off here. Miss. 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 Okay. Finally got a hit over here. So the Assab dismounted bowman here rolled an 8, which is a morale check against Jean-Pierre here. Yeah. So, ooh, might be close. So it's 8. Now it is 8. Plus minus 1 for the leader. So Crusaders are good there. 9. I think that's still not good enough, but equal to 9. Yeah, minus 2. So mounted bow, yeah. So they need a 10 and nothing. Okay, so that's all offensive fire. Let's see, Ottomans have any melee? No melee. All right. Oh. Huh. Okay. Okay. We're going to the rally phase. The routed unit here actually is within the command span of Bayezid here, because Bayezid has a very impressive 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he's clearly within command span of the leader. Yeah, he rolls a 1. So he rallies. Huh. There we go. And then no check for victory this turn. So now we go to the Crusader turn. Crusader movement. Okay, so I guess thinking about this, I thought about this in quite some time as well. Jean-Pierre needs to trace command span to his units. Now, Enemy combat units. Where is it? Enemy zones of control, block command span. But none of these skirmish units have a ZOC. So don't need to worry about it unless occupied by a friendly combat unit. Okay. Hex is occupied by enemy combat units, block command span. So all these skirmish units are enemy combat units. So I cannot trace command span straight through these hexes, but I can go around because they don't exert ZOC, basically. So from pure 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So all of his knights are still in command span. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and everybody else is in command span. Okay. Movement. So now we have the movement over here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. So right about there. So just move up a bit. 3, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right. Under reserve commands. Transylvanians over here are now in advanced command. 2, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and now for the French cavalry, still under attack orders. He's rallied, so he... Oh. Alright. I am going to go back and do this because it's so hard. It seems so hard for me to remember. Now, he began the turn during the order phase. He recovered. He can check for morale to enter charge state again. Yeah, so he passes morale check. So he goes into charge mode. And now in the movement phase, 1, 2. It's charging there. Yep. Now we go to the Crusader combat phase starting. Okay, and he retreats before combat. Actually, there aren't any. So we go to defensive fire. Okay. I'll just do a bunch of, go through their defensive fire. They're rolling really poorly. Wow. Missed everything. A lot of low rolls. Now we go to offensive fire. Still no offensive fire, so now we go to melee. Mark our melees. Let's see in order here. Let's try to wipe a unit out. And 2 and 3, try to catch some units here. All right. Our first melee here. We need to pass our morale checks for commitment. Oh, the second unit. So Jean-Pierre and his heavy cavalry passed, but this one did not. So commitment. We know this. Starting heavy cavalry units, the failed morale check and melee either during commitment or as a result of combat are flipped to their non-charging side. I guess they're flipped to their non-charging side, and then boom, that's it. He still does not commit. So they all froze up, lost their momentum, and they're not in the fight anyways. So now we go to now we have the skirmisher. You type out cavalry units, retreat on 8, 9, or 10. He fails, he rolls a 2, he is not able to retreat before this melee. Now he has to commit. He does commit, he rolls a 2, so he is committing. He is committed. So now we go to resolution. The attacking heavy cavalry has a 16. Okay, rolled a 4 plus 1 for the attack command is 5 plus 1 for Jean-Pierre's combat bonus is 6. 6 on the 16 to 20 column is a morale check. Morale check. The melee units fight back. It's 4. That's nothing. So we go back to go to morale checks as a result of melee. Defending combat units vacate the hex. Well, 7. Just barely passes his morale check. Huh. It's pretty good skirmish units. Alright, melee number 2. Attacker commitment. He passes with a 4. The retreat before he gets it, he rolls an 8. So retreat before the combat. You can't go here because that's an enemy sock. Must advance, and I think he gets to do a facing change. I'm not sure why not. But I guess he does not get his second movement and combat. So the third melee. He rolls an 8, so he just barely commits. Retreat. Nope. He rolls a 4. He's not able to retreat before the melee. Ooh, he fails his morale commitment. So he routes 3 hexes to the rear. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And route. Now we go to if a defender vacates the hex as a result of melee, Oh, as a result of pre-melee morale check. I guess that's this case. So he advances, but now he does get his. Wait a minute, does he or doesn't he get his? That's interesting. No. Okay, it says only as a result of step 6. Yeah. Not sure what's intended there, but it makes it sound like do not continue charging. So that is Crusader, all the Crusader melees. We go to the Crusader rally phase. We'll just have the 1 over here, the unit that moved within the command span of the overall leader Sigismund. So he tries to rally. The roll is 6, add 1, 7 because he's routed, and his morale is 7. So he just gets it exactly. Now he's rallied. Got no victory check this turn, and so that is the end of the 3rd game turn. Next game turn is 11 in the morning.